All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. It looks like we have one person joining us as of right now. Um, we're going to work on fabric today. I did put some other objects to kind of deal with the issues that I saw in some of your guys' drawings this last week. So I'm going to start out with my gestural drawing here. I'm just going to put a rough approximation of the fabric in the background. Let's get these objects out of the way first so we can focus just on the fabric. So what I saw a lot of you guys doing was, especially on your cylinders, they'd flatten out because the angles were all wrong. So I have my ruler here. I'm gonna hold it right up against that, right there. Take it right back here. Draw my line. And then I'm gonna base that line right on the other side. So to break it down a little further, what you can do as well, before you start putting in the form of the objects, you can just draw a line, just like that. I'm gonna add my lid right quick. Eventually you'll be able to do this all freehand, but you can come back here. It's a little boxy, but what we'll do is we'll follow this line. We can see right where the middle is, that's where our form should start curving. We'll mimic that, and we want to follow this line right here. So if it helps, you can build another line right here. Same thing. All right. Follow that up here as well. And your forms will be a little bit straighter and even. It works really great for square and rectangular objects too. So I can hold this up here. I can see it's at a slant. Bring it right back to the other side. Down. And you can mimic that. This is a frame, so I got some epoxy on this ruler the other day, but it's fine. It's a little sticky. And then I can go and trace those lines. I'd rather you be more loose, but if this does help you, then go with it. You can see I made my cat a little too big. You guys had such cute objects this last time. I thought I'd put in something cute as well. All right, so I'm gonna go over the little shading again. Directional shading. Don't be afraid to get in there. Follow the curve. Especially in those 15-minute drawings, you want to quickly get down about where everything is. It's more about plotting out where your actual shadows and highlights are going to go in those quick drawings. That way you already know that base stuff for when you sit down and do your 30-minute or your hour-long drawings. So it's just a study, really. And I'm not going to focus too heavily on these objects because our main focus today is going to be the fabric. And I saw a lot of you guys were doing an awesome thing where you were shading right over transparent objects with your chalk. Very nice. On top like that. Remember, when you're blending in, blend in directionally. Now, one thing I was going to suggest, and I suggested to a few of you, this is an optional supply. But these gel pens, you can just draw right on top. I like to hatch with them, so you can see a little pop of color. You can also get, I ran out the other day, so I can't show you till I get some more, but Copic makes a nice opaque white ink. You can just brush on your highlights. Let me put a few more details in this cute little cat here. And remember to break up your shapes, especially if it has a facial pattern. And we want to get a scale of value going. So we want dark darks, light lights. We want them to contrast each other so they really bring out the object. And I don't want you to get too bogged down when things have lettering. When you add lettering and you don't do it meticulously, it really stands out and makes it come out flat, uneven. So if you do want to put in those little details, I recommend doing your fixative over the drawing. That way you can really get in there. And I would take a pencil. You can see this one I've already sharpened to a super duper duper fine point. I just did that by sharpening it with my electric sharpener and then going in with the X-Acto blade. So let's talk about fabric. Fabric is super duper hard. You guys will be doing at least 3 hours of just fabric. I don't want you to put your objects in it. I just want you to drop a piece of fabric and draw it. Same thing, zoom in. You will get lost in the folds if you try and draw the entire thing. Really push in. And then when you're doing your still lifes and you're adding in fabric, that's when you can get a bigger picture to accentuate things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick out the most distinctive folds here, and I'm going to plot those out with my Vine charcoal. And very quick, not scratchy, going in boldly. And I'm sort of adding in those darks already, just to know where they are, give more form so I don't get lost where I am. I silenced that phone. I did not silence that phone. That was dumb. And you will do some selective editing, and what that is you'll make some things disappear, you'll make some things more prominent, all to make your image look stronger. Because sometimes it just doesn't translate well. All right. So that's about where you should be. See, this thing has a million folds. You can already see it, but you can see like this right here. I took this and folded it in right there, accentuated that because I like that more, and I took out this piece right here just to give it some more even flow. So, like last time when I kind of got into it, we start with our vine and hit those areas with the lightest shading. We don't want to add a lot of harsh lines. Like that should be the harshest line you have. You don't want to outline too heavy-handedly because if you make a mistake, it's going to stand out a lot more. So that being said, I'm going to keep on building this up. Remember the pressure of this. You can make it dark or a little lighter, depending on how you hold it down. You know, and I also get terrified if I'm not in the zone for this that I'm gonna mess it up. So if I'm afraid, you're gonna be afraid, but there's no reason to. I just had like 6 cups of coffee, so maybe that's it. But eventually you'll find your groove, and it'll just be muscle memory. It'll just kind of go with the flow. All right. So I'm not going to blend this in yet. I'm going to take my my compressed charcoal and start going where it's the darkest. And I'm going to put all that dark value in first. I'm not going to blend it. I'm not going to try and make a gradient with that yet because that'll be a single step. But trying to find those super duper dark areas. And it's good to have like this little piece right here where it's super duper dark next to my objects. It kind of accents them and makes them stand out a little bit more. And it's all about positioning your objects to create a 3-dimensional space on a 2D plane. And same thing, the pressure goes dark. So, oh, I already have some pieces snapped in half. So I think it's a good idea to snap some pieces. Don't try and keep it as a whole all the time. Have one really long piece so you can do these directional shadings, but snap it, you know, as big as you need to so you can get different dimensions and shape and that variation of line that we brought up. And it's also good that we didn't work this up because this might lose a lot of detail as we go back and forth over the drawing. All right, going in with the chalk, what we're going to do is use this as the blending tool rather than our fingers. So because these wider areas I left will be the highlights. So you have it about halfway between where you want the whitest white to be, because you'll take this and go up and out. And then you'll come in to do an implied line to get that variation. You'll use your finger to create those lines. And then you'll be able to see the gradation rather than just trying to create it, and you follow it right along that line, and then you push these out. Try and use your least dirty finger, or use a blending stick like a real person. And see, we have a nice crisp white line right there. So we'll do this all the way and working things. This is still directional shading. You see how I'm twisting my wrist? I'm still using my arm to draw, but I'm twisting my wrist to follow that fold. What is that noise? I live in a really weird neighborhood, by the way. People here are crazy. And I can also use this to reshape some of those lines, to get the variation in there, and to clean them up. They're all interconnected. And sometimes, see, like this is closer to the light, so it's gonna have a bright highlight there. But sometimes these things are gonna cast a shadow. So you can use that thick line and blend it around to get the curve of the fabric. Rivers and valleys. In some areas, you're not going to use that at all because they're darker. More black than gray. Just like I was going in here, doing that. And see, this line's a little too thick up here, but that's fine because what we're going to do anyways, there's one of two things we can do. If we were going to leave this white or not as toned as this is going to be in the background, just take a little bit away, blend it out, come in with our kneaded. And this will do two things. It will erase, but it will also blend, so it will cover up that spot, and you won't even be able to tell you used an eraser. Just like that. So we have it up to this point. What do I want to do? So I can see that this is that selective editing again. So it's far darker in here, and it feels very imbalanced. So I'm going to go in and just make up some stuff. I don't recommend doing this in your studies quite yet because you're really just trying to understand how everything moves, but once you understand, you'll be able to make these decisions. And it'll look a lot more natural. So I'm going to keep going in and keep building this up. Until I get it just how I want it. Keep on going in. With your brightest white, build up on that. Before we get to that though, I almost forgot. Drawing in with your eraser. So say I wanted to take something away. Say I don't like that highlight as much, or it needs to be further down. So I would take my kneaded eraser, shape it to whatever shape I needed. Haha, I'm a dork. Bring it in. And then with a heavier eraser, this is gonna make a brighter white on the page for me. Kind of move in a circular motion like that. So it blends it out, but it still removes a layer, and it transitions a little bit better. That can help you out. Also, if you're really expressive, I like to go back in and kind of add some hatching. We're reading my favorite thing, this Monsters, this week. Well, some of you will read it. Most of you will just skim through it, which is fine. I want you to look at the art more than the content. And there's these things called radial highlights. They're just where the light hits something, just right at the edge. See right here, radial highlight, just the edge of that. Radial highlight in here, just that little edge. And they're very, very subtle. But once you build up things and you have these kind of dark things, I saw somebody that did I think it was Chloe, did a drawing of a shoe, and on the heel, she did these markings to divide up the space, and it also gave it some dimension. So remember to add those highlights because it makes it stand out a little bit more, see? It also hits up here. Man, I think we lost it. Our 1%. I'll do this again. I might do this every week. It's fun. Maybe you'll drop by. Maybe you won't. But I mean, I'd love it if you did, because if you were the only one here, you could ask me anything you wanted, and I'd be like, bam, that's how you do it. You get some one-on-one practice. So I'm going to go back in and build this stuff up since there's nobody to ask any questions. I'm going to build these objects up and just kind of talk and, whatnot. Really push it. So I want to get this. I like this detail, like I was talking about. Somebody did a really good flower vase that had a fleur de lis in it, and she did the detail so nicely. It didn't detract from the image. She just had just the right amount of detail. So again, I'm following this right here. If you need to get the ruler back, put it in the center, drop it down, do that. I'm not going to. So what I'm going to do for this detail, I'm going to blend this all together. Loses a little bit of the form, but then I'll hit it with radial highlight, look real nice. And it's good to work backwards to forwards, work on your background objects and move forward, because you'll be rubbing up against the stuff so much. So instead of just using the white chalk over this for this little thing right here, I am going to take, not my kneaded eraser, but my pink eraser, or if you bought a Sumo, I couldn't find my Sumo today. I don't know where it is. And I'm just going to draw it with the eraser. So we get a really bright white, a little bit of contrast. And there's this cool reflection. This is holographic. There's this cool reflection I kind of want to get in here too. And I'm just hatching a little bit with my eraser there. And then I'm going to come in, where's chalk? On top of this, I'm going to come in with the chalk. So it's a little bit brighter, and that makes it stand out. The white of the paper, the chalk, and then finishing touches with the gel pen will really make those things pop. And I like this D. I'm not even going to worry about the design master. I'm just going to put this D in. And it has this M in the center. I'm just going to mark like that. That translates well, because when you step back from these, I think you'll be amazed. Those of you who weren't too happy with the results and didn't think your drawings were too realistic, I would recommend placing them, you know, right in front of you. Take some steps back, and you'll be like, wow. Okay, and then for these little letters here, I'm just going to make scratches, because we know something's there. But if we do that, if we try and hand draw those letters, it's just going to detract so much of what's here. So these radial highlights, I'm going to go back here, check where that is, use the edge of my ruler, make sure it's straight with that, and I'm going to put in my radial highlight right there. See how much more straight that looks, how much more clean that looks. It only took a second. I'm going to make that line disappear that was there. Just like that. So this is holographic. It's really hard to capture that without the color, but not impossible. So I'm going to gray it up a little bit. That way I can use both the vine and the chalk to really push those highlights. Remember, we're not going for realism per se, we're going for a naturalistic representation. So we want to capture the space the object inhabits. We want to make sure that the objects are relative to the size they are, to the position that they are, to show dimension and space. So I'm going to crisp up these lines because they got erased while I was working on that spray can. See, it leaves that little halo, but you just blend it back on in. Now, actually, that's not exactly black. That has one of those radial highlights where the light hits it. And it's not just a straight line. So it starts, stops, has a few dots where the light hits it, and then fades back a little bit. So for variation, we have this thick line right here. I think we should have a thinner line with a little less weight. So if you're doing the ruler method again, nope, and I can see that's off a little bit. That's just fine. See, that gives us a difference of line right there. This is a little bit lighter, crisper, and it's a little thinner. It's further away, so it's not as strong as this side. There's a little piece of cardboard back here, so since this is transparent, I'm going to fill this in. There's a drop shadow right around here. So I'm thickening up the line by going back and forth. And it's on this side too. Directional shading. Now this is both cardboard, so they both have the same color, but not the same values. So I've made this a little darker, coming in with my vine, and it also has a little bit of texture. So I can see those corrugated pieces there. And then I'm going to come in with my white. Now I'm not going to bring the whole thing down. I'm going to lift and dab because I don't want to lose those values we've established in there. But where it's a stronger value, a stronger highlight, I'm just drawing over the object. We get those reflections. And of course, we could, again, use the eraser for those. And such a reflective surface along that frame. And there's a radial highlight on the bottom here. Strong white. It's noticing those little details and really accentuating them. Like, instead of drawing out the outline of everything, there's the really subtle angles in the frame where they piece together the different pieces of wood. So rather than do that on every side, because it doesn't pop out on every side, only really here for me when the light hits it. I'm just going to go in. I'm not even going to connect it, but drop that right there. All right. Not going to spend too much longer on this frame. All right. Now well, no, I do want to spend a little bit more on this frame because those highlights really be popping and I like them. We can kind of get the texture in there. Maybe put a few dots in. of varying size and shape. There we go. Okay, now the kitty. I am going to tone the cat just with the excess charcoal that's on there. And if you're wondering how many ceramic cats I have, it is too many. That's probably, well, you know. All right, so I'm gonna do the outline of the cat with the vine. I'm gonna blend it to that background. And it comes over just the tiniest bit on here. I can erase that little part right here. It's got the chubbiest little cheeks. Beautiful eyelashes. And it has the flowers. Whoever was doing, I think it was the same person that did the vase. Those flowers were gorgeous. All she was doing were these little organic, flowing, loose lines. You can see they have the wreath around here. And all I'm doing, I'm not really drawing the flowers. I'm kind of gesturally drawing the shape to get the overall feel, so it doesn't become too overwhelming. And that fabric actually wraps around. I'm going to go in. This is a perfect example of what you would need to erase it for. The smallest part of the feet show on there, and the rest of the fabric wraps around the figure. So I'm going to fashion this into tiny little point. Tiny little point. Can you see that? Is that good enough? Tiny little point. I'm going to, since I've done a lot of detail, I'm just going to use my pinky and place it against the drawing like that. Take away. And now it looks like the fabric is going around the cat. So I toned my cat. I also left these little shapes. So she does have some texture and some highlights. Very minute, again, pinky, but I'm just going to draw them with the eraser. I'll go back in, kind of accentuate it. Put her in her sassy eyebrows. Yeah. You guys are going to hate me. Okay. So that's a really strong line. And it's all about pattern, balance, repetition. That selective editing I was talking about. That is a really strong dark line. I like it. This has maybe not the same quality, and this we just went into the vine. I want to replicate that so it sticks out. What I'm going to do is, it has this kind of hatchy vibe. I'm going to go in, put some hatches, darken up a few areas to make them really stand out. Add a tiny little detail on the kitty. Tiny little highlights. You know, it is ridiculous. I don't usually work in charcoal. I do pen and ink drawings. So I'm super meticulous. I have all these very fine point things. I am going to carve my eraser into a little point so I can get a stronger value. And all I'm doing is cutting into it and down so I get a really crisp point. See, can you see? Crisp point. And I get some really strong highlights on the cat. Now, last but not least, background. So I don't want to make it gray because I don't want to wash out the gray accents on the frame or the cat. I'm hesitant to make it too dark because we have a lot of dark areas, but it won't really work as light because I've done this here, and that just subtle tone is not going to work. So I am going to darken up the background. And these are the questions you should be asking yourself as you're drawing. You should be taking steps back if you're not thinking about it when you're drawing. You need to analyze and see what choices you make. And that's a lot about what is about why we're reading this comic book. Plus, I love it. The art is amazing. And we're getting into ink next week. So Emil Ferris is a great starting point for that stuff. And no, halos, most of you were really good about it. And some of you, I know it was unintentional, but you can get so close. Remember, I was saying one of the ways we can fix those thick lines, you just go in with it. And we can crisp them up by using our finger. And it's just like drawing another tool, your hand, the way you angle it, the way you use your arm. Another thing you can do with the eraser, not the eraser, the ruler. If you're scared of ruining a crisp line, put it to the edge. You can blend right over it, and it's going to protect that edge. See, nice and crisp. Another thing I noticed, we really got to think about composition. I want you guys to experiment. If all you did last time was a portrait position or a landscape, that's why I did this in landscape today. I remember last time I did one in portrait position. So mix that up, zoom into your areas. You see, I didn't try and do this. Can we see what this whole thing is? I didn't try and do this whole thing. I really focused on zooming in to one particular spot. I cleaned up my desk, I swear. It's always messy. And we'll want to zoom in even further, like even maybe just that area when you're doing those studies. And we want to do a complete drawing, remember? So think about composition. Also, if you just drew from the same angle the entire time, switch it up. You can draw from the same still life, but maybe go over it, maybe move your position, maybe draw from over here so you're getting different angles. Just think about that stuff. Also, if you have a big drawing board or something, maybe drawing on the floor. If your back can handle it, mine can barely handle it anymore. Maybe more dynamic upward perspective would be good. Just think about those things. Really try and dive in. So I'm pretty happy with this. I can see a few things I need to shore up. See, I didn't bring that line in all the way. Need to find that. So it kind of gets blurry and lost. I'm going to go right here like I did with my ruler. Oop, that's not what I wanted to do. That's it. That's it. Bring it up. All right, the gel pens are the opaque. I can go in right on top. Really nice organic shading. Also, it's good for little dot highlights. But your pens will get messy. It will dry out, so just go right a little bit. They'll come right back. Accentuate these eyelashes. Maybe come in with a few more scribbles over here. You know, I'm not completely happy with that ellipse. So I'm going to thin that line out. And I can see radial highlight. And again, it's not exactly straight. It gets broken up, a few dots here and there, and continues. And there's a little bit more in here. Directional shade. And blend. All right, so I'm a little sad nobody showed up to the party, but that's fine. I will do this again next week and the next week and the next week till somebody shows up. Well, if nobody shows up, I'll keep on doing it. I kind of like it. So this week, my favorite thing are monsters. Do your fabric studies first before you move on to your other things so you can get a good sense and feel for everything. Really pay attention to composition. Remember, we want stuff going off the page. Look at how much more interesting this is than if I were to just draw this whole thing. It cuts off here, it cuts off here, it cuts off here. It's framed a certain way. There's also balance in the negative space. The way it's divided up into thirds, there's not a whole lot of just empty dead space. What else did I see from you guys? If you didn't get feedback, I think I caught one that it didn't save. If you did not get feedback, you're going to get some feedback. Also, super important, if you do submit late, please email me and tell me you're going to submit, because I spend all of every Monday grading, and then I don't really look at it afterwards unless somebody has questions. So, and I don't get a notification that you submitted. So it might not get graded for a while unless I go back. So let me know. That's it. Any questions, email me. I'm always here. Some of you guys, I suggested that we have one-on-one Zooms. If that interests you, hit me up. If I didn't and you do have a question and you need me to demo something, those are office hours. I am available to do that. Have a good day. You guys got a lot to do, so get to it.